Hallo, mein Name ist Viktoria Netwet, ich bin Online-Redakteurin bei Sheconomy und in diesem Video spreche ich mit Mady, Dewey und Ellie Howard. Das sind die beiden Gründerinnen von Herd. Und Herd ist eine neue Social-Media-Plattform und zwar die allererste, die ausschließlich von Frauen gegründet worden ist. Bei Herd gibt es anders als bei anderen Social-Media-Plattformen keine Likes, keine Followeranzahl und keine Filter. Und zwar ist das Ziel von dieser App, diesen ständigen Vergleich aufgrund dieser Parameter zu eliminieren. Dieses ständige Vergleichen auf Social Media hat negative Auswirkungen auf die psychische Gesundheit. Und das ist auf jeden Fall etwas, das auch ich merke und Millionen andere Menschen auf dieser Welt, vor allem junge Menschen. Im Interview sprechen Mady, Dewey und Ellie Howard über den Suchtfaktor von Social Media, über psychische Gesundheit im Zusammenhang mit sozialen Netzwerken und sie erzählen über die Herausforderungen, vor denen sie standen als zwei weibliche, junge Gründerinnen in der Tech-Branche. Viel Spaß! For everyone who has not heard about Herd yet, can you tell us what sets Herd apart from all of the other social media apps that are out there? Instagram, Facebook, TikTok.
I think there's quite a few things, but I think we can summarize it generally with just the hypothesis behind why we're creating it and also the value that we hold true in every aspect of our design. So we're at the point in social media where we understand the things and the aspects of design that are not beneficial to users, that are problematic for our mental health, and that cause harm to individual users. And Ali and I firmly believe that we can use that research to redesign and recreate what social media could be. So Herd is founded on this idea that like social media doesn't have to be toxic, it's just always been designed that way. And so with Herd, we're aiming to use all of the data that we have in our personal experience with social media to design a landscape that protects users every step of the way to ensure that they're able to do the things with social media that we always wanted to be able to do, which is to create, to inspire, and to feel good and to connect with other people. So we hope to get back to that core.
Great. So you two are the founders of Herd, the new social media app. There are also a bunch of other social media apps out there, obviously, and we'll talk about the problem with them in a minute. But I want to ask you first, what draws people to social media platforms in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really great question. And I think it's changed as time has gone on and as social media has evolved over the course of its lifespan. I mean, I think when social media first started and first came out, it was this exciting new thing, this ability to connect with whoever you wanted to and connect with your friends, old colleagues, family, whoever it was, in a way that was never possible before. And so I think really at the heart of it is that need for community and connection. I think that's something that as humans is really core, a core driver in who humans are, is this need to, be connected to others and not feel lonely. And so social media is such a great way to do that, and it has accelerated that like never before. But I think really where social media has gone wrong is in the what these companies could never have imagined when they first, started, was that all the toxicity and other things that came into play on top of their I guess mission when they started out in this need for community.
Mm-hmm. So I made a little survey among my friends about their social media consumption, and there was one thing that definitely stood out, and that was that many people said that they spend a lot more time on social media now during the pandemic because they had a lot more time on their hand, and that is basically what all of these social media platforms, for example, Instagram, want, because they use algorithms that cause addictions to the platform. So they want to engage you as long as possible, and they only show you what they think that you're interested in, so that you stay there as long as possible. I wanted to ask you guys about your perspective on this and also how Herd is tackling these issues.
Yes, it's funny you bring up the pandemic because that was really a driving force behind why Herd was created in the first place. Like Ali and I were totally in that same bucket of spending so much time on social media, to the point where we were recognizing the impacts that it was having on our mental health, the way in which we compared ourselves to other people. And it's pretty sad because we've never, been in a time where people are feeling so isolated, and it would be so nice to have the source of digital connection be something that is actually able to foster that sense of community. But unfortunately, it only drove isolation further, in my opinion. And Ali and I used that as fuel to create Herd. But in terms of how we're adjusting for that, I think there's a few things to consider. The first is how these businesses make money. So most of them are monetizing through advertisements, and they can get more ad money when people spend longer times on the platform and when they have more users on the platform to basically like advertise in front of. So we aren't planning on having advertisements as they exist today on Herd. We believe that we can monetize in other ways. So that eliminates the immense pressure that exists on things like Facebook and Instagram to date. The other way we are giving users control is through something we call feed autonomy, which basically allows users to select the categories that they'd like to see and track their interaction within each of those categories. So say I opt into home and fitness and gardening, and I, over time, am only interacting with gardening content. Herd, like other platforms, will show that user more gardening content. But what's different about Herd is that user can go at any time to their profile and see that they are spending most of their time in gardening and course correct. They can remove it completely, they can add in other categories, or if they are not seeing enough, they can add in more of that category. So it gives users control. And then the actual last piece that I'll talk about is how we are protecting just the mental health of our users and that screen time kind of notion. So we plan on having a screen time limit built into our platform, so every user needs to set a time limit, and once they hit that time limit, they can continue to scroll, but we will really emphasize that users take a break when they hit their personalized limit, and the hope is that we will lock them out of the platform for 5 minutes for them to actually go and take the break. Because Ali and I know it's so easy to say like, okay, I'm going to take a break, and then 2 seconds later actually hop on. So we want to help people in that journey to take the inspiration that they're seeing on Herd off platform and in real life.
You already mentioned that. It was actually going to be my next question. It's about how social media affects your mental health, because obviously, studies found that the more frequently we use social media, the more likely we are to struggle with anxiety and depression. And one of the reasons is that social media are there to fuel this kind of unrealistic comparisons. And that is also, I think that all of the women I asked, they said that they have compared themselves before with women on social media. And most of the time they didn't feel good about themselves afterwards. So have you guys experienced this? I wanted to ask you.
Yes, absolutely. I've experienced this many times. I was actually just looking at this today, but there's a statistic that says, I can't remember where I saw it, but it was 66% of people end up comparing themselves on social media and leave the platform that they're on feeling more lonely and more isolated than before. So I think that really just ties into the point you just brought up. But I have absolutely felt a sense of comparison on social media. And I think I'm I try to be confident and very, introspective and, taking a look at where and when I'm feeling this comparison. But as many of the guardrails that I put up in my own life, it still creeps in. I still find myself on someone's page 30 weeks deep. I mean, that's a made up number, but deep into stalking them. And I'm like, I take a step back and I'm like, okay, how did I get here? I've just wasted 30 minutes, an hour looking at this person's life, or their life supposedly, when this is a highlight reel, really. This isn't really who they are. And I really have to have that mental check-in with myself. And as someone who is really self-aware, I'm glad that I can recognize that, but I know there's so many people out there, so many younger girls. I mean, I'm almost 25, and there's so many younger girls that have only grown up with social media. This is all they know, and don't have that ability to check in and say, you know, this isn't real. This isn't real life. I shouldn't be comparing myself to this person. And so I think that's, you know, one of the main things that Herd is trying to solve, and one thing that we really recognize that isn't healthy on social media today. And that's a huge reason that we do have the private profiles that are on Herd, so that, you know, in-depth comparison doesn't happen.
Can you tell us about this private profiles? How does it work?
Yeah, I'll take that one. And I second everything Ali said. I feel like we are two peas in a pod when it comes to our experience on social media. But yeah, so I think us understanding what that's like definitely has helped in the design of Herd, because we get it. We are a part of that 66% of people who are comparing. So our public profile, or our profile is private, but the photos are still public. So what that means is when I post, I can post publicly to the feed, which is similar to like a mix of Instagram and TikTok. I'd say those are the closest comparisons. But the difference is that you can never go to a user's profile and see their full collection of photos. An example of this is if Ali posts a photo of her at the beach and I see it on my feed, I can engage with that photo on the feed as it lives, but I can't click on Ali's name, go to a profile, see all of her photos, see how many followers she has. There's no follower count on Herd. There's no like number on Herd. We have emotion-based feedback buttons that allow people to interact with the photo. But the numbers are all hidden in a way, or organized in a way that eliminates that comparison. Because again, like Ali said, current platforms are a highlight reel, and we don't want users comparing their real life to someone's highlight reel. And we have this hypothesis that like a big reason why people even post the content that they do, like the highlight reel type of content, is because it's in an ecosystem that is so focused on how many likes can I get, how can I appear in the most pleasing way, or the most perfect version of myself. And so when you eliminate those numbers and you eliminate the public profile, I think the authenticity of the user's posts will actually increase, because there's no longer that pressure.
Yeah, you're talking about this, the like function and followers and everything. And the thing is, you know, we all know it's not a secret also to these big social media platforms like Instagram that this is harmful. And Instagram has even tried to eliminate the like function, but it didn't last. Why is nothing changing? Do you have an explanation for that?
Yeah, I think the main reason for that is that it has to do with user psychology. And that is so ingrained. The like button and commenting and all those features are so ingrained in these platforms like Instagram and Facebook that when they tried to change it, because they tested it out and it didn't work, because it's so ingrained with who and what Facebook and Instagram are as a platform. And so as much as they could try to change that, the user behavior on those platforms is the way it is, because it's, you know, when it started, it's been built up that way. And that's why they haven't been successful trying to change it. And that's why we believe by starting off Herd and factoring in these from the get-go and from the beginning, we will be able to course correct.
All right, cool. I also wanted to ask you, is Herd supposed to be another app that people are using, you know, aside from Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, everything? Or is it supposed to be the one and only app that people are using, basically replacing other apps?
No, we don't think that we're a replacement. We think that we are a safe space away from all of those platforms. Obviously, our hope is that users feel like they are able to get everything that they want out of a platform online from Herd. We also recognize that there are certain potential needs that we aren't going to be able to fulfill, such as gaining likes and followers publicly, having a public image. Those things aren't really going to be existing on her. So I don't think that it would be fair to say we're trying to just like eliminate everything. Our hope is that users will come onto Herd, whether that's for 5 minutes or they spend all of the screen time that they typically do. We hope a little bit less. We don't want people spending 4 hours a day on Herd or any platform or on their phones, period. But I think if users spend all of their screen time that they typically would on Herd, our hope is that when users leave, they feel better than they did when they initially logged on. And over time, hopefully there's a comparison there between how they feel when they go on another platform and how they feel when they go on Herd, because as much as we'd like to say those emotions that we feel when we're on platforms just stay while we're on the platform, it's proven that that follows us into our day in and day out lives, how we think about ourselves, how we interact with others. And if we start with making a better social media platform that's safe and allows people to feel like they have community and support and are uplifted, that can translate into a real world change. Even if it's small, we think that Herd has the potential to do that.
You already mentioned it before. You were saying that you're not planning on having ads on your app. Most of the social media platforms have that. They gather users' data and sell it to advertisers, and they get very specific ads. And there's the saying, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. So I wanted to ask you, you still want Herd to be free. So do you have other ideas of how to monetize the app, and what are those ideas?
Yes, we definitely do. Mady and I both work in the advertising space, so we're very familiar with how that all works in the back end of that, and how much data exists on all users that are online and on social media today. And that's really one of the core issues. And I mean, I don't know if issues is the right word, but one of the core things we wanted to change with Herd is not having all this information on the user and really giving them, each user on Herd, the privacy that they deserve. And so we have a few different ways that we will be monetizing on Herd. One of those exists within something we like to call the marketplace. And so basically the way this works is each brand has the ability to pay into a subscription model that is based on the amount of followers that each brand has. And that information we have on the back end, again, like follower counts are not public. And so the brand will be able to promote, put a sticker basically on a post to promote it, to send a user that sees that to an external website that they may have, or I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a website, but send them externally. And then in addition to that, we will be monetizing through partnerships. So like Mady said, we have these speed bumps throughout the app to check in with the user to make sure that they aren't spending more than an hour at a time on the app. And so when this comes up, basically when the user is directed to take a break, close out of the app, take some time away, stop scrolling, they'll be directed to one of these partnerships that we have. And so that will be with other, mental health, not necessarily mental health, but other companies, other apps that will promote well-being. So think of like, meditation apps, music apps, things like that in that space. And we'll be able to monetize based on the leads that we're sending to them.
All right. Also, let's talk about the fact that all of these social media platforms that are successful have been founded by men. So for example, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, Instagram, Kevin Systrom, and so on, everyone basically. Now, you guys are co-founding Herd, and you want to change that. You're two young entrepreneurs, two women in this very male-dominated startup and tech field. And I wanted to ask you, which challenges have you faced so far in this process?
So many. The list, we could be here all day. I think, yes, it's a huge importance to us that we're kind of breaking the stereotypical mold of what social media founders look like. It is predominantly male and white male, and so we want to have a really diverse team. But for Ali and I, what we've faced so far is just funding. Honestly, that's where I think we felt the biggest struggle. I want to say that I don't have that total percentage, but I think it's like 4% of VC funds go to women typically, and so that it's not just 4% of women pitching. I can tell you that, and so we feel that difference, and then we also feel the level of questioning we get, which there's been studies to prove that women get questions more on how they're going to make money, on how this business is actually going to work versus just the idea and the passion behind it. So we felt those questions in the conversations that we've had as well. But honestly, I think for us, it makes us kind of excited. Yes, it's an uphill battle, but we hope that along this journey, we've had the amazing opportunity to meet other women founders, and we have a little women founders club that we have created with a few of the other ladies. And so it's been, I think, for us really great to know that there are so many women trying to tackle a male-dominated industry, and hopes that together we can help eliminate a lot of these things that exist for the next generation of entrepreneurs.
That's great. I'm really excited for the app. I wish you all the best of luck, and I want to ask you one last question. I don't know if you know it yet, but when can we expect the app to launch in Europe as well?
Great question. We get that one a lot. We are planning, if everything stays on schedule, to launch in the US in April and then roll out in Europe over the course of 2021. So I know we don't have an exact date at the moment, but as we get closer to that April launch, and then as we see how it goes in the US first, we'll have a better understanding of when it will be released outside the US and into Europe.
Okay. Yeah, we want sooner rather than later. It's all going to depend on funding and how many engineers we have to support our endeavors, but if we can secure more, then we will gladly be coming to more places.